Imagine being slowly impaled by hundreds of spikes inside an iron coffin, a gruesome fate many endured during the Dark Ages, an era infamous for its brutal torture devices and inhumane practices. In this chilling video, we'll uncover 10 shocking true stories from the medieval period in Europe, a time shrouded in darkness, superstition, and unimaginable cruelty. Number 10. The Judas Cradle. The medieval times in Europe were marked by the creation of horrific torture devices, including the Judas Cradle, an invention of the Italian Ippolito Marcia, used by the Spanish Inquisition to punish heretics. This device, prevalent in 16th century Spain, was operated by a team of torturers who were paid to extract confessions. The Judas Cradle featured a pyramid-shaped seat where the victim was placed, immobilized by ropes binding their hands and feet. The pointed top of the pyramid was inserted into the victim's privates, causing excruciating pain that could last for days, often resulting in permanent damage or death by impalement. Additional weights were sometimes used to intensify the suffering. Victims who remained silent were repeatedly lifted and dropped onto the device during interrogation. Leaders of the time believed that such torture was essential for community growth and maintaining the purity of the Catholic faith. The dark legacy of these devices, including the Judas Cradle, underscores the brutal lengths to which medieval society went to enforce law and religious orthodoxy. Number 9. The Black Plague. In the Dark Ages, the Black Death, a bubonic plague pandemic, devastated Western Eurasia and North Africa from 1346 to 1353. It's the deadliest pandemic recorded, with deaths between 75 and 200 million. Peaking in Europe from 1347 to 1351, the plague was caused by Yersinia pestis, spreading through fleas and later person to person via respiratory droplets, leading to septicemic and pneumonic plagues. This second major pandemic reshaped European religious, social, and economic landscapes. Genetic evidence traces the plague's origins to the Tian Shan Mountains on the Kyrgyzstan-China border, where Yersinia pestis emerged around 2,600 years ago. Europe's first encounter was in 1347, when the Golden Horde besieged the Genoese port of Kaffa in Crimea. The disease then hitched a ride to Europe on Genoese ships via infested rats. In Europe, it primarily spread through person-to-person contact, causing rapid and widespread mortality. This historical episode raises intriguing questions about our past. Number 8. 3 visits to the doctor. In medieval Europe, a minor cut could escalate into a fatal infection. Doctor visits often signaled impending doom, leading families to prepare for mourning. Diseases were commonly attributed to sin, with prayer and meditation serving as primary remedies. The vast majority of peasants, about 85%, had access only to basic medical care. Most doctors lacked formal training and relied on age-old traditions. The poor turned to wise women for herbal remedies, while those with modest means might buy drugs from apothecaries. For more severe procedures like tooth extractions or amputations, barber surgeons were the specialists. Wealthier individuals employed personal physicians who adhered to the belief that sickness was caused by elemental imbalances, a concept from Aristotelian and Hippocratic teachings. Diagnoses often involved analyzing bodily fluids, with treatments including bloodletting with leeches. Mental illness, seen as a result of demonic possession, was met with severe stigma. Treatments by physician priests could include trepanning to release evil spirits. Such harsh practices highlight the stark contrast with modern medicine's progress. Number 7. Great Famine. The Great Famine, striking Europe from 1315 to 1317, ended a period of growth since the 11th century. It brought widespread devastation, affecting most of Europe and causing countless deaths over years. Poor weather in spring 1315 led to crop failures until the summer of 1317, with full recovery delayed until 1322. Compounding the crisis, cattle diseases decimated livestock populations. The famine era saw rampant crime, disease, mass death, and even cannibalism and infanticide, reflecting the desperation of the populace. It also had profound impacts on the church, state, and society, setting the stage for future disasters. While medieval Europe was no stranger to famine, the Great Famine's scale was unparalleled. Food scarcity meant short, harsh lifespans. The famine followed the medieval warm period's end, with Europe's population having grown significantly. The early 1300s saw some of the worst weather of the Middle Ages, likely exacerbated by a volcanic event during the Little Ice Age. Persistent heavy rains and cold temperatures in 1315 led to crop failures and livestock shortages. In England, floods caused food prices to skyrocket, making bread unaffordable for peasants and intensifying the struggle to survive. Number 6. Preformationism. In the nascent days of biological sciences, one intriguing theory about human reproduction was preformationism. Proponents of this theory believed that organisms didn't develop from scratch. Instead, they were convinced that tiny, fully formed versions of the organism, known as homunculi or animalculi, pre-existed within germ cells and merely needed to grow larger. The term homunculus is Latin for little person, and preformationists imagined it as a diminutive human form nestled inside a sperm cell, awaiting growth into an adult. This concept was famously depicted in an illustration by Nicholas Hartsoker in 1695. Given the limited technological advancements of the time, the mystery of how organisms developed was yet unsolved, making the idea of pre-existing miniatures that simply expanded a convenient theory. Naturalists of the era, convinced by preformationism, professed to observe these minuscule beings within eggs and seeds. The discovery of sperm cells in 1677 further propelled the theory's acceptance. Reflecting on these early scientific beliefs provides a fascinating glimpse into the history of biology, before the discipline reached its current understanding. Number 5. Unconventional hygiene practices. Medieval physicians recommended using urine as an antiseptic, even for treating the bubonic plague and cleaning battle wounds, believing the ammonia in urine could prevent infections. Urine also played a role in softening and tanning animal hides, its ammonia content aiding in the removal of hair and flesh for leather preparation. Imagine wearing clothes from urine-treated leather. Moreover, ancient Romans used urine as mouthwash to whiten teeth, raising questions about its effectiveness and their breath's freshness. Due to the scarcity of soaps, people turned to urine-based solutions, or chamber lye, to cleanse clothes of stains and grease. Would you consider using urine for laundry? Middle Ages. Women removed body hair using dried cat waste or concoctions with ants' eggs and vinegar, risking odors and skin irritation. Poor sanitation, with waste disposed in water sources or buried near towns, exacerbated disease spread. The importance of proper sanitation and hygiene products for public health cannot be overstated. Number 4. Mummy brown. Ever heard of mummy brown, also known as Egyptian brown? This rich brown pigment was a favorite of the pre-Raphaelites in the 19th century due to its remarkable transparency, which was perfect for glazes, shadows, flesh tones, and shading. What's shocking is that mummy brown was made by grinding up ancient Egyptian mummies, and sometimes even mummies from the Canary Islands. It's a bizarre truth, but that's how this unique color was produced. The pre-Raphaelites sought realism in their art, and mummy brown provided an earthy, lifelike quality unmatched by other pigments. It was famously used in Martin Drolling's Interior of a Kitchen. However, the pigment's popularity led to the use of remains from contemporary slaves and criminals once mummies became scarce. When the grim reality of mummy brown's composition came to light, artists were appalled. Edward Bourne-Jones, a notable pre-Raphaelite, even buried his tube of the pigment in his garden as a form of protest. By the early 20th century, mummy brown fell out of production due to the limited supply of mummies. Yet, for a time, it was the sought-after pigment for artists desiring a naturalistic palette, despite its macabre origins. Number 3. Animal trials. During the Middle Ages, animals could be tried for crimes, a bizarre aspect of European legal systems from the 13th to the 18th century. Livestock, insects, and other animals were subject to criminal trials for offenses ranging from murder to property damage. The earliest known animal trial occurred in 1266 when a pig was executed in Fontaine-Rose. Animals were sometimes represented by lawyers in church courts, and human witnesses testified against them. If convicted, punishments included exile or execution. Notably, a female donkey was acquitted in 1750 due to her reputed good behavior. E.P. Evans' book, The Criminal Prosecution and Capital Punishment of Animals, chronicles these trials. Pigs were common defendants, undergoing arrest and court hearings, with some sentenced to death. Other peculiar cases involved a rooster tried in Basel in 1474 for laying an egg, thought to be the work of Satan, rats issued eviction notices, and a dolphin on trial in Marseille in 1596. These trials reflect a perplexing chapter in legal history. Number 2. The Knight of Templar. The Knight of Templar, also known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, was a Catholic military order established in 1119 with headquarters in Jerusalem. Supported by the Roman Catholic Church, they became a favored charity throughout Christian lands, recognized by their white mantles with a red cross. Although 90% were non-combatants, the Templars were a formidable force during the Crusades and innovators in early banking, amassing vast wealth through their network of commanderies. Their wealth and power, however, made them targets. King Philip IV of France, coveting their riches, leveled false charges of blasphemy against them. Many Templars were tortured into false confessions and burned at the stake, including their last Grand Master, Jacques de Mallet, who was executed in Paris for not divulging the order's secrets. In 1312, the order was dissolved by the Pope. The Templar story is a dramatic saga of valor, wealth, and the perils of immense influence. Number 1. The Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden, a human-sized metal box lined with interior spikes, was a notorious torture device from Europe's Dark Ages. Also known as the Virgin or Jungfer, it provided a twisted form of entertainment for those inflicting pain. This sinister contraption had 2 doors, allowing for the swift insertion and confinement of victims. Once trapped inside, individuals would be impaled by the spikes, leading to severe injuries or death from prolonged blood loss. Historians are divided on its origins, with some suggesting use around 200 BCE, while the first documented case involved a coin forger in 1515. The Iron Maiden's spikes were meticulously positioned to torture without causing instant death. Eyes, chest, and genitals were typical targets. For high-profile captives, such as royalty or notable enemies, the device would be custom-fitted to their body measurements, adding a personalized dimension to the cruelty. Despite its simple mechanism, the Iron Maiden is a chilling symbol of human depravity, its design a testament to the lengths taken to inflict suffering. Which story surprised you the most? What do you think of them? Let us know in the comments below. If you'd like to see other videos we've made for you, click on one on the screen or check out the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.